So I thought I'd show you a little bit about sharpening your knives. The funny thing is, you actually cut yourself more often with a dull knife than you do with a sharp knife. And I know that sounds crazy, but what happens is when you have a dull blade on a knife, you have to spend a lot more exertion, a lot more pressure to push the knife through the item, whether it's vegetables or root vegetables, sometimes things that are really tough to cut. And if you have a dull knife, you're putting a lot of pressure on. The idea that the knife would slip is much more likely with that dull knife. If you have a sharp knife, the knife is going to slide beautifully and make a nice cut through your item so that you're not having to put quite as much pressure on it. And also, sharp knives save wear and tear on your hands and your wrists. You know, we don't want any carpal tunnel. We want you to feel comfortable in the kitchen and cook as much as you'd like and enjoy it too. It shouldn't be a pain or a strain on you. So there's a lot of different ways you can sharpen your knives. You know, one is usually when your knife comes new, if you have a new knife, it's fairly well sharp. But there's a couple things you can do to keep it sharp. One is a sharpening stone. And a sharpening stone, this costs a few dollars, not very expensive, but it does take a little bit of getting used to. And what we do with the sharpening stone is, this one has two different sides on it. It has a very rough side and sort of a finer side. And we put a little bit of oil on it. What this is food grade mineral oil. And the funny thing about food grade mineral oil, you get it in the drugstore, what it really is it's castor oil, like what your mom or your grandma used to give you as a kid, castor oil. And what you're doing is, you're taking your blade at an angle, not putting the knife straight into it, but just to the side, and you're working down the blade just a little bit at a time. You're working down, working in a circular motion, working down, and then you can turn the blade over and you can do the same thing this way. Now, don't start off with one of your good knives trying to learn to use a sharpening stone. Go to the Goodwill or a thrift shop or somewhere and get or if you have a junky old knife, practice a little bit first with it so that you can kind of feel it and feel that you're doing well with the sharpening with a junky knife before you get into your good knives, because it does take a little bit of doing to get used to using one of these. Now what we use for sharpening in our professional kitchen, and we use it virtually every day, is we use a diamond wheel. And the thing about a diamond wheel is it's a little bit expensive to buy one of these. But what we know a lot of folks is they'll go in with a neighbor and they'll share the cost of it, and then they'll share the diamond wheel going back and forth. Or sometimes a family that cooks together, they'll have a diamond wheel and they'll share it and they'll sort of rotate around. The diamond wheel has different settings here. It has an automatic magnet in it that puts your blade at an angle. So it's at the perfect angle. You're going to plug this in, turn it on, and maybe about 4 or 5 times through each side, and then you matriculate up to get a finer and finer edge on your knife, and finer edge on your knife, and it leaves you with with a really nice sharp knife. And then when you're done, you're going to want to wipe that gray shavings off. You're not going to want to eat those. And if you don't, then you go cut potatoes that are white, or you cut cauliflower. You're going to have silver marks that are shavings really off of your knife into that nice food. Once you've sharpened your knife, this is what we call a steel, like steel, a steel. And what we usually do is once you've sharpened your knife, there are little fine microscopic teeth that are on the edge of the blade that you can't really see. But what a steel does is, a steel allows you to align those teeth, and it takes that nice edge that you've done from sharpening, and it aligns those teeth and gives you a really fine edge. Now you can steal between recipes, you can steal almost every day if you want to. It's not going to put a brand new edge on your knife, but it is going to give you a nice point to those blades and keep those teeth. So this is something you can do virtually every time you cook if you want a nice sharp edge. This is another type of steel. This actually has diamond dust on it. And it's the same thing. You can align those teeth on the edge of the blade with the diamond dust. Now, one thing is, sometimes you'll see chefs at steakhouses and people carving tableside, and they'll be up here sharpening their knives. We recommend that you anchor the steel on the board. We recommend that you pull the blade towards you gently, and don't try to dance around and show off. Make sure you're just safe and anchored and feel safe when you're using a steel on the edge. And then again, wipe those shavings off so you're not eating it. It's not very good eating. One thing, too, that once you have nice sharp knives, you don't want to store them in a drawer. You want to store them where if they're in with other cutlery and they get shaken around and stuff, it gets nicks, the edge gets abused, and that's not something you want to do when you have a really nice knife. Take good care of it, and it's going to really take good care of you. Couple things you can do. There are knife blocks. You can keep the knives in the knife block. Sometimes that's handy. That keeps the blade fairly safe. There are also these sheaths that you can get that can go on your knives. This one's just plastic, but I can put it on my knife blade. And then if I want to put this in a drawer, I know that the knife is protected. I also know when I grab into the drawer, I'm not going to grab an exposed blade that would cut my hand that way.